Australia consistently ranks as one of the wealthiest, most stable, and most desirable places to live on Earth. But that idyllic reputation obscures a tough reality. The continent is incredibly hostile to human settlement. By landmass, it is the sixth largest country in the world. It's almost exactly the same size as the continental United States or Europe. Yet its entire population is under 28 million, roughly the same as the Netherlands. The reason becomes obvious when we look at where they live. About 95% of the Australian population huddles along a narrow coastal fringe. The vast interior, the outback, is the flattest, driest inhabited landmass on the planet, making large-scale settlement nearly impossible. This extreme spatial distribution dictates everything from how the country feeds itself, to where its industries operate, to the culture of the people who call it home. Long before European arrival, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples maintained a continuous connection to this land for at least 65,000 years, managing the delicate ecosystems through careful stewardship. That continuity was violently disrupted in 1788, when the British Empire established a penal colony in New South Wales, claiming the entire continent and rapidly dispossessing the Indigenous population. For the next century and a half, Australia functioned largely as an Anglo-Celtic outpost. But following the Second World War, the government launched a massive populate or perish immigration drive. Hundreds of thousands of European migrants arrived at docks like these, beginning a massive demographic shift. This influx would eventually turn Australia into one of the most culturally diverse nations in the world. Today, that wave of heavy migration has produced a highly urbanized society. The modern Australian lifestyle is famous for a sophisticated, casual approach, a culture that prioritizes work-life balance and embraces a global third-culture culinary scene built on fresh, local ingredients and Asian-Australian fusion. You'll find this lifestyle heavily concentrated in a few major coastal hubs. Cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane have swelled to massive populations, while the nation's political center operates out of the much smaller, inland-planned city of Canberra. What you see today is a very new, very dense, and highly diverse colonial society trying to impose a modern way of life onto an ancient, unyielding landscape. To support that modern society, Australia relies heavily on digging up the outback. The country has enjoyed a remarkable streak of unbroken economic growth, and the backbone of that wealth is the extraction of raw materials like iron ore, coal, and natural gas. That mineral wealth is pulled from the remote interior and loaded straight onto massive bulk carriers. By shipping millions of tons of resources directly to growing Asian economies, Australia has converted its geological luck into serious geopolitical leverage. To govern this wealth, the country uses a hybrid political structure, often called the Washminster system. It blends a Washington-style federal model, where 6 states hold significant power, with a Westminster-style parliamentary democracy, complete with a prime minister and a governor-general representing the British monarchy. That system suffered its most severe stress test on November 11, 1975, an event known as the dismissal. In a move that shocked the public, the appointed governor-general used his reserve powers to unilaterally fire the democratically elected prime minister, Gough Whitlam, after a budgetary deadlock in the Senate. While the dismissal left lasting scars on the political psyche, the rigid two-party dominance that followed, combined with an endless supply of natural resources, gave the nation an enduring sense of economic invincibility. But that invincibility is starting to crack. In the major coastal cities, a severe housing affordability crisis is actively suffocating the very population centers that drive the economy. This chart tracks population flow from capital cities to regional areas. A sharp upward trend shows record numbers of citizens fleeing expensive cities. This elevated migration remains steady into the living with COVID era, a permanent structural shift placing immense strain on regional housing. At the same time, the natural environment is becoming increasingly hostile. Intensifying climate change is driving severe droughts, floods, and bushfires that are pushing deeper into the populated coastal fringes. Beneath these physical pressures lies a deep, unresolved historical tension. In 2023, the nation held a referendum to establish an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice to Parliament. a proposal to grant Indigenous Australians formal constitutional recognition and an advisory role. The measure was heavily defeated. Roughly 60% of the country voted no, and the proposal failed to secure a majority in a single Australian state, exposing sharp social and political divides. Between the spatial crush of unaffordable housing, the escalating extremes of the local climate, and the failure to reconcile with its own history, the promised Australian dream is under severe pressure. To survive the coming decades, Australia is attempting an ambitious economic pivot. The goal is to transition away from being a fossil fuel export giant by harnessing that vast, flat interior to generate enormous amounts of solar and wind energy, aiming to become a global renewable energy superpower. This economic transition is happening on a delicate geopolitical tightrope. The nation relies overwhelmingly on exporting its resources to China to maintain its standard of living, while simultaneously depending on a deeply entrenched military and democratic alliance with the United States for national security. Maintaining its immense prosperity relies entirely on executing this green energy transition and balancing these competing global superpowers, all without triggering a domestic economic collapse. The immediate question is whether the country can build the regional infrastructure it needs and diversify its export economy fast enough to outpace the mounting demographic and environmental shifts. In many ways, Australia serves as a test case for the modern world. It is a highly developed, peaceful democracy that is simultaneously trying to manage explosive population constraints, severe climate extremes, and a difficult historical reckoning. From the outside, it looks like a flawless success story, but on the ground, it is a nation quietly scrambling to adapt its way of life to a landscape that is demanding change.